Hey guys, I'm standing here at the Timber View parking lot at Carvins Cove with one goal in mind today, and that's to ride as far as possible and expend as little energy as possible. To do that, I've got the Kona Remote 160 here. This is an E-mountain bike. We've got 160 millimeters travel front and rear. Obviously, we've got a motor and a battery on board. This came as a demo bike to me. I was lucky enough to get this amidst the parts shortage, so mind the components. But that isn't the important part anyway. The important part is this motor here and the battery, which is a Shimano E-Step system. It's the EP8 motor with an EM800 battery, which is a 504 watt-hour battery. This thing will provide me 250 watts of constant power output up to 20 miles an hour. This thing boasts a supported travel of up to 62 miles, and that's what I'm here today to test out. I pulled this thing off the charger right before I left, so we are at full charge. The goal is to kind of test out what's possible by trying to milk this battery for everything it's worth. So there's 3 modes with this bike. We've got Eco, we've got Trail, and we've got Boost. I'm gonna toggle between probably Eco and Trail today. I probably won't use Boost at all in hopes of saving as much battery as possible. But I've got a loop planned: climb the trough, Brushy Mountain Road to Buck, drop down Buck, wrap around, climb up Heidi Ho. It's a super steep climb up to Brushy Mountain Fire Road again, and then drop down Royalty, come back up the horse trail to bottom, and then just do loops as many times as I can here over the next 3 hours and hopefully drain the battery in 3 hours. You know, I'd love to be able to take this out into the national forests around Roanoke, you know, take some big loops and cut down on the overall ride time. I don't want to have that be the first experiment and then get caught like way out there with a dead battery and have to lug this heavy piece of machinery back to the car. Without further ado, let's see how long this thing can last. This is probably gonna be the hardest part of the day. That or putting it back on. Now we're on the loop up the trough. And this one's pretty steep. I'm gonna go up it in Trail. Let's see what this thing can do. I have the KOM on a regular bike. It's like just below 10 minutes. It's like just under 10 minutes. And that was like a 400 plus watt effort. How many people can say they've done almost 9 mile an hour average up the trough? How you guys doing? Pretty good. So that was a 8:15-ish effort up the trough. A minute and a half faster than my fastest on a regular bike, and I think my heart rate maxed out at 125. So yeah, this thing's pretty sweet. Down Buck. I've turned the battery off. Okay, so trough is done, Buck is done. Now we're getting ready to go up Heidi Ho, which is just a super steep climb, just like the trough. So really putting the battery to work today. That was way easier with 250 extra watts. So we're here at the top of Heidi Ho on Brushy Mountain Fire Road. About to drop into the gauntlet. I said royalty earlier, but I think that's because I was confused. So we've lost 1 bar of 5. And like I said, I've been climbing on trail mode. I put it on eco a few times up Heidi-Ho, and I just feel like it's too similar to riding a normal light XC bike uphill. I mean, like, I got this e-bike, I want to use it like an e-bike. Trail mode for me. You might be able to eke out a bit more mileage if you run it in eco more, but yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. Okay, so now we're just on this horse trail and it goes straight back to the parking lot. So to do another lap, we'll go right up the trough here in a little bit. I got to do that whole gauntlet descent with no assist. It seems like 1 bar a lap is what I'm gonna get out of it, which is gonna be about 45 to 50 minutes a lap. I'll probably get like 4 laps out of it. Maybe we account for a little bit less. I'm gonna try to continue to be as conservative as possible and only use trail on the steep climbs. And yeah, like right now I'm using eco, it's pretty flat. One thing that's cool about these e-bikes is they're so heavy and they have such big tires to support that weight that when you lay this thing over, it corners like a champ. It reminds me of like bike packing when you have a bunch of extra weight and your rig is set up properly. You can really go downhill. The difference between this and bike packing is all of the weight's on the down tube and at the bottom bracket. So it's centered and it's low. So it's really stable at high speed. And again, when you lay it over, it just bites into the ground for traction, which is nice because it's pretty loose and dry here at Carvins. All right, lap 2. Here we are. Mandatory eco mode. This is like when you're running low on DI2 and it doesn't let you shift the front derailleur. Hopefully we make it up Heidi-Ho and then we can coast gauntlet back to the car. I don't know. It's pretty steep. Like I said before, I feel like eco mode is just like relegating me to like the same speed as if I was just out here riding my hey, which is why I didn't use it more and I was only using trail on the climbs. But staring at this flashing red battery makes me wish I would have used eco instead of trail just a smidge more. We at least made it here. We can still rip the gauntlet. Because we have the horse trail to run it out. Okay, that was the end of lap 3, and we're still on blinking red eco. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes in with 23.5 miles. Technically, we're not dead yet, so we're gonna keep going. We'll just, if it doesn't die before the trough, we'll hang a right and go up the trough until it dies, and then we'll rip back down. Literally right after I hit stop record, it's completely juiced. So as I limp back the horse trail, I'll think about what all this even means, and we'll debrief back at the truck. You guys don't need to see me haul this big pig back there. Now that I've limped it on back to the parking lot, what does all this mean? Well, we got about 24 miles, 2 hours and 15 minutes of ride time. Again, that was all on mostly trail for the uphills, and any flat sections I was on eco. So if I broke the lap down, each lap was about 18 minutes of trail and 15 minutes of eco. And then I turned it off and just rallied the downhills as is. So if I multiply that by 3 and take out that section of the last climb where the battery died, we got about 40 minutes of trail, 50 minutes of eco. All in all, I thought I was gonna get a little bit more time out of this bike. I think that's because I'd always been exposed to the 704 watt battery, and this is the 500 104-watt battery. Yeah, once I kind of realized that, it all kind of made sense. Keep that in mind when you're looking for an e-bike. I'm not sure if the batteries are compatible. You might be able to pair a 704-watt battery into this motor system. One thing you can do to maybe eke out a little bit more time and efficiency out of your battery is you can actually use the Shimano E-MTB app and the Bluetooth dongle that comes with these bikes. You can actually customize how power is put out in each mode. So, you know, based on your riding style and your cadence preferences and all of that stuff, you can kind of play with that, and it might even help you get a little bit more runtime out of this battery. Yeah, so what does this mean for me? This means that I can get out into the woods for like around 2 hours, 2:15, maybe 2.5 if I'm like ready to pedal a little bit on my own, which is pretty cool. I think the next step is now to take this into the backcountry and pick a loop that I'm familiar with, a bigger loop, and see how much time I can shave off of that and if I can get this thing to last. Talking about the ride quality of this machine, e-bikes are fun. I mean, you get to go uphill at a speed that you'd never go uphill before. I went up the trough in just over 8 minutes, which is almost 2 minutes faster than the fastest and hardest time I've ever gone up it. And I was just cruising in like zone 1 heart rate, just chilling. It's really cool. I could definitely see using one of these things in the middle of a rest week or a day where you'd want to go easy, but you still want to ride mountain bike and you know there's some steep climbing in the area. You could use this to kind of level everything off. A couple things to note here. One is definitely suggest having the drivetrain dialed in to near perfection. When you have a constant 250 watts and then you're adding your own pedal power on top of that, any kind of inconsistencies in shifting is going to be extrapolated by the fact that there's always load on it, even in the dead spot. Typically the best way to shift, my right foot passes 6 o'clock and then it comes up and over 12, and so in that quarter of a turn is kind of where I do my shifting, because that is where the load is decreased. But when you have an e-bike and you have this constant power, you're always going to have some sort of load on the chain. I did have a bit of a catastrophic meltdown yesterday. If something happens because of that added power, it's just gonna happen like this.
Oh, that's no good.
The other thing to note is this thing is heavy. Got this big battery and this big motor and bigger wheels and tires to support all that. And because of that, you got to be ready to either be more physical or anticipate things in a different way than you would on an XC bike. Especially pulling up the front end, I found myself struggling with that, especially in one section every lap. I just couldn't figure it out. Keep in mind that you can also use the motor to help you kind of lift the front end, at least when you're climbing. There is a little bit of a learning curve to really going fast on this thing. All that extra weight, as I mentioned before, really pushes your knobs into the ground, so you can really lay this thing over and do some cornering, as well as, you know, climbing. You can get a lot of grip. So I'm looking forward to taking this thing up some of the steeper climbs in this area. All in all, this was a good first kind of experiment getting to know this thing. I'm looking forward to kind of like I said, taking it out into the backcountry, doing some really steep climbs. That's definitely on the to-do list. Maybe just mountain biking when I otherwise wouldn't, because I have an easy day. This thing is sweet for just getting out in the woods and putzing around. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Or if you just have any ideas on what you'd like to see this thing do, let me know. I'd be happy to accommodate.